So you've probably seen those awesome 5% interest rates popping up on savings accounts, right? And if you're like me, you're wondering, how long can this possibly last? Well, you're right to ask, because the clock is absolutely ticking. We're in this really unique, super time-sensitive moment for our money. And today, we are going to break down the strategy you need right now to lock in those high yields before they, well, disappear. All right, let's get into it.
Okay, here's what we've got on tap. First, we'll talk about that 5% rate and why it's basically a vanishing act. Then, we're diving straight into the solutions, how to lock in your yield, what tools are best, and how to get smart with taxes and timing. And we'll wrap it all up with a final action plan you can walk away with.
All right, first up, the 5% vanishing act. Let's get right to the heart of it. You know, these incredible, but definitely temporary, high interest rates we're all seeing.
And look, this isn't just some made-up number. We're talking a real 5.0% APY right now. Right now, places like Borrow Bank and Adelphia are actually offering this on high-yield savings. And it feels amazing, right? To see your cash actually working for you, earning a real return. Honestly, it's the best environment for savers that we've seen in a very, very long time. But here's the big question. For how long? I mean, that's really what it all comes down to. This sort of golden era of high yields, it's got an expiration date. The same economic forces that gave us these great rates are already starting to shift, and believe me, all signs are pointing to them falling, and probably sooner rather than later.
So why is this happening? To figure out how to protect our savings, we've got to understand why this change is on the horizon. And it really all comes down to the big picture, specifically what the Federal Reserve is up to. You can kind of think of it like a simple story in 3 parts. Act 1, the Fed goes on the attack, raising rates like crazy to fight inflation. That's the restrictive policy that gave us these awesome high yields. Right now, we're in Act 2, the peak. Rates are high, we're enjoying it. But Act 3, the future, that's what we need to plan for. And in that act, the Fed is widely expected to start cutting rates to give the economy a little breathing room.
And hey, this isn't just some wild guess. We're talking about a consensus here. Major players, JP Morgan, UBS, they're all pretty much on the same page. The forecast is calling for 2, maybe 3 rate cuts through 2026. What does that mean for you? Well, it means a potential drop of 80 basis points. That's almost a full percentage point gone from your savings rate.
There's this quote that really just says it all. The 5.0% yield is the most transient, and that's the key word, transient. It's fleeting. So the most urgent move right now isn't just to sit back and enjoy it. The real strategy is to convert it, to turn that temporary high into something fixed, a guarantee for the long haul.
Okay, so how in the world do we actually do that? It's all about a mental shift, really. We've got to stop just chasing the highest rate for today and start thinking about protecting a great rate for tomorrow.
Let's talk tools. That 5% high-yield savings account? Think of it like a mirage in the desert. It looks fantastic from a distance, but its rate is variable. It can vanish the second the Fed decides to cut rates. What we really need is a fortress, something with a fixed rate that's built to withstand those cuts. And the classic example of a fortress? A certificate of deposit, or a CD. And this is where things get really interesting. You know the biggest selling point of a high-yield savings account, right? Maximum liquidity. You can get your cash anytime. But in this specific scenario, that strength becomes its biggest weakness. Because the rate isn't locked, it's super sensitive to Fed cuts. That's why it's described as structurally unsuitable for what we're trying to do, which is secure our future income. All right, let's get tactical. It's time to choose your financial tool. We're going to dig into the specific instruments you can use to build that fortress and protect your returns. So for anyone who's new to this, a certificate of deposit, or CD, is actually beautifully simple. It's basically a deal you make with the bank. You say, hey, I'll leave my money with you for a fixed amount of time, let's say 18 months. And the bank says, great, in return, we'll guarantee you a fixed interest rate for that entire time. It doesn't matter what the Fed does, your rate is locked in.
So, what's the magic number? How long should you lock your money up for? Well, if we go back to that forecast, the one predicting rate cuts through 2026, the strategic sweet spot seems to be right around 18 to 24 months. Why? Because that's long enough to ride out the storm, basically. It lets you lock in today's amazing rates for that whole period when rates are expected to be falling.
This table really lays out the trade-offs perfectly. You've got your high-yield savings account, or HYSA. Great liquidity, but you're totally exposed to interest rate decay. Then there's the CD. It's fixed, which is what we want, but your cash is restricted.
Pull it out early and you'll pay a penalty. And then there's a third option, U.S. Treasuries. Also fixed, but they come with a really cool tax benefit that we need to talk about next.
Okay, now for those of you who want to take this to the next level, let's talk about taxes and timing. Because honestly, we can't ignore taxes. They can completely flip the script on which investment is actually the better deal for you.
Now, tax-equivalent yield sounds super complicated, but I promise the idea is really simple. Here's the deal. Interest to earn from U.S. Treasuries is exempt from state and local taxes. CD interest? Nope. You pay taxes on all of it. So tax-equivalent yield is just a way to compare them apples to apples. It answers the question, what rate would my taxable CD need to have to be just as good as this tax-free Treasury after Uncle Sam takes his cut?
And this is why it matters so much. Just look at this. For someone in a higher tax bracket, that amazing 5% CD, well, after taxes, it shrinks all the way down to 2.8%. It's a huge haircut. Meanwhile, look at the U.S. Treasury. It starts at a much lower rate, but its after-tax yield is almost identical. It's crazy, right? For some people, especially those in high-tax states, the Treasury with the lower starting rate is actually the smarter financial move.
But wait, what about that problem with CDs, having your money locked up? There's a really clever strategy for that called laddering. Instead of dumping all your cash into one big CD, you split it up. You put a piece into a 6-month CD, a piece into a 12-month, an 18-month, and so on. This way, one of your rungs on the ladder is always maturing, giving you regular access to your cash without any penalties. It's the best of both worlds. You get access, and you still get to lock in those great long-term rates on the 18 and 24-month rungs.
Okay, we've covered a ton, the why rates are falling and the how to protect yourself. Now let's bring it all home and build your final action plan.
Think of this matrix as your personal guide. Just find yourself on this chart. Do you absolutely need access to your cash? Your strategy is probably HYSAs and maybe some short-term T-bills. Are you okay with locking up some funds to get that guaranteed rate? Then that front-loaded CD ladder is for you. Are you in a high-tax state like California or New York? You should seriously be looking at Treasuries to maximize your after-tax return. There's even a line here for inflation concerns. The point is, this takes everything we've talked about and maps it directly to your goals.
So, what are your immediate next steps? Your homework, if you will. Number 1, if you're considering a CD, you have to read the fine print on the early withdrawal penalties. Know what you're getting into. Number 2, do the math for yourself. Calculate your personal tax equivalent yield. And number 3, have an honest conversation with yourself about your real liquidity needs over the next, say, 12 to 30 months. How much cash do you really need to keep free?
And we'll leave you with this final thought. The window to act on this is right now. That 5% rate, it's a gift, for sure, but it is a temporary one. By making that shift in your thinking, from just earning a high rate to actively protecting it, you can turn this fleeting moment into a real long-term financial win. So the only question left is your savings strategy ready for a rate cut?